Hey, everybody. Welcome back. We are back. We are so back with another episode of The Shift with Gina. Happy to see you guys. Happy that you're here. Hope you're having a nice December so far. I can't believe that we are almost at Christmas. It's one of those cliche things that everybody says, I can't believe it's almost the end of the year. And they're like, see you next year. Whenever you're like saying goodbye to somebody that you're not going to see until January. But things are good over here. My daughter's actually a little bit under the weather. She woke up with a fever a couple of days ago and was just really not feeling herself. My daughter has a very high pain tolerance. She must inherit it from my husband because her mommy does not have a very high pain tolerance. So when she is really feeling bad, you can tell. She's not a child that would sort of exaggerate or fake it. So the past few days, she's just been not herself and feverish here and there. And we have been doing the magic socks thing. So if you guys have watched any of my content in the past, you know that we talk a lot about pharmaceuticals and how a lot of parents, I think, feel pressured to immediately resort to pharmaceuticals when their children are sick because we just want to see them feel better. We don't want to see them suffer. And also there's very little to no education from medical doctors about how to treat these sort of common ailments like fevers and colds at home without immediately resorting to pharmaceuticals. So, instead of just automatically giving her something like Tylenol, which, by the way, moms and dads out there, Tylenol is probably the worst fever reducer you can ever give your child. If it comes to the point where they need a fever reducer, don't go with Tylenol. We have dye-free children's Motrin in our cabinet. That's what we go to if she needs a fever reducer. But the magic socks thing is really great. I want to tell you guys about it. We talked about this in a Fever 101 workshop that I did with a friend of mine who is a holistic practitioner that works a lot with children and families, children's wellness. Her name is Colleen. You can actually purchase that workshop retroactively if you ever want to watch the recording. But she described what the magic socks thing is. And this is a very sort of old school way to treat fevers for children right before they go to bed. So you have to give them a warm bath first, make sure their body is really warm and they're in the sort of hot water for a little while so they're warmed up. And that in and of itself should make them feel a little bit better if they're feverish. I like to put a cup of Epsom salt in the bath. I also dilute some apple cider vinegar and put it in there. Those are really good for fevers. And then before I put the Epsom salt under the running water, I'll sprinkle a little bit of essential oils like lavender on there just for a calming effect. And then I put her in the bath for 20 minutes. And my daughter loves a bath. I'm sure your kids do too. And after she's been in the bath and all warmed up, I take her out, I dry her off, I moisturize her, put on warm pajamas, and then I soak a pair of cotton socks, thin cotton socks in ice water. And then you soak them in ice water and you wring them out as much as you can so there's no more water dripping from them. You put the cold socks, wet socks, immediately on their feet. And then you get a pair of wool socks, thick wool socks. If you don't even have the thick wool socks, you can get a pair of thick cotton socks or maybe even double up cotton socks. They got to be dry. And you put them directly over the ice cold wet socks. And then you put them straight to bed. So this has to be done right after a warm bath and right before bedtime. And the reason this is so great is because it indicates to the body that the body needs to raise its internal temperature, which helps it fight the fever, helps it fight the germs that are in the body that the body is trying to kill. And you'll be shocked. This is always amazing to me. Whenever the child wakes up the next morning, their feet are extremely warm and the socks are totally dry. Because the body has heated up overnight. If your child is very feverish, the child may be a little bit sweaty during the night or when they wake up, and that's okay. That's normal. But last night we ended up having to give her a micro dose of Motrin because she was just so uncomfortable. She didn't even really struggle with so much of a fever last night. She just kept waking up, crying, very uncomfortable. I think she was just in pain, whether it was the body aches or my daughter tends to get canker sores in her mouth. Anytime she gets sick, anytime her immune system is sort of down, she gets these nasty canker sores that you can't treat for toddlers because the only way you can really treat it is a sort of, I think, a lidocaine mouthwash, but they have to spit it out. So, my daughter just turned 2. She doesn't really know how to spit things out yet. So she just has to sort of suffer through the canker sores. And so we gave her a little microdose of Motrin last night because sometimes you have to just to get them to sleep and rest. But she's better today. Anyway, it's a long-winded way to say welcome to the season of colds. the season of the flu. I hope you guys are staying healthy and staying well. Today, we got a lot to get through. We've got 3 different viral clips that I want to talk about today. 3 different topics. We're going to talk about womanhood, marriage, family, motherhood. And the first one we're going to talk about is this viral clip of Sharon Stone on a podcast where she's talking about how hot she is at the age of 65. Sharon Stone, I don't know if I should be embarrassed to say this. The only thing I know Sharon Stone from is Basic Instinct, which I've never seen, but everyone has seen the clip of her seductively opening up her legs. And it was one of those classic moments. They say one of the most iconic moments of seduction in cinema. Whatever. I mean, people thought she was super hot, and she was probably I don't know how young she was. She may have been in her 30s, maybe 20s when she did that film. It was, I think, in the 90s. So we're going to look at this viral clip. But before we do, don't forget, ladies, if you're looking for a fantastic online health and wellness community full of women who are interested in culture and politics and improving their health for themselves and for their families, click the link in the description to join the shift. We have a ton of stuff going on in there. We have a steps challenge going on through December to help you keep up your health and your fitness throughout the holidays. In January, on January 2nd, we're starting a 30-day reset, which is going to kick off the year 2024. Every day we're working on something a little bit different in terms of your physical health, whether it's diet, nutrition, cooking, or exercise. We're also going to be working on some lifestyle and habit and mindset stuff in that challenge in January. We also have different weight loss programs in that group. I share a ton of exclusive content there, content that I'm not allowed to share on social media or else I'll get banned forever. A lot of that stuff is there. I also talk a lot about motherhood and talk a little bit more about personal stuff there. So click the link in the description. Guys listening, if you want to share the link with a girlfriend, a wife, a sister, a mom, we got a wide variety of women in that group, and it's growing quickly, which is really nice. So click the link in the description if you want to join. Okay, Sharon Stone. I don't know what podcast she was on, but she seems to be sitting down and speaking with 2 or 3 different women. I don't know who these women are, but they're sitting together and they're talking about something. So let's take a look at this clip. It's a minute long. What does Sharon Stone have to say about, I don't know, womanhood and beauty? Let's see.
I'm in my 60s. People think that no one looks at you anymore. And the truth of the matter is, I have just as many people who want to sleep with me now as I ever did. There isn't that thing when you walk in the room that every guy goes, ooh, because you're not as easy as you were when you were young. And men recognize that's why they don't look at you as much. It's not because you're not as hot. You're not as easy to, and you're not as easy to get rid of, and you're not as easy to keep quiet. You're not as easy to dump afterwards. You're not as easy to be a side piece. It's not that you're not as hot. You're hotter. Because you're more relaxed. You're less concerned about, do I look great? You know you look great. It's not because you're not as anything. It's just because you're not as easy.
Oh, easy prey.
Sharon Stone is on the internet trying to convince the world that she is just as hot, if not hotter, at 65 as she was when she was in her 20s. This is sad for a lot of reasons. First of all, anytime that someone tries to justify their value or their worth by claiming that there are a lot of people who want to sleep with them, that's obviously a huge red flag. And that's not somebody that we should be taking advice from in any way. But this kind of nonsense coming from a woman who's 65, it's sad for 2 reasons. Number one, because it indicates to women that their value lies in the way that they look. And it's actually sort of the inverse of what we talk about of women hitting the wall. You see a lot of content these days. I think a lot of it's probably circulated by the sort of red pill manosphere. They talk about women hitting the wall. And a lot of women find it offensive, and they find it to be demeaning to women and diminishing of women's value. But this is the same exact thing. So if you're saying that it's offensive to say women hit a wall, and that sort of indicates that their value is in the way that they look, this is just as offensive. You know, there are just as many men who want to sleep with me. It's not because, you know, I'm just as hot as I was in my 20s. If that's what you're leading with to talk about your value, it's the same thing. And you look at the way that she looks now. She looks fine. She looks good for her age, but The Sharon Stone that we knew in the 90s and the early 2000s, I mean, she was said to be one of the most beautiful women in Hollywood. Guys went crazy over her. And they said there was something very special and unique about her. And she just kind of looks like an everyday older woman now. And that's okay. I don't know why she has to try to convince the world that she's still just as hot as she was in Basic Instinct. The second thing that really makes me sad about this is you have a 65-year-old woman who is wasting her time trying to convince the world that she is just as hot as she was in her 20s, instead of using her wisdom, her earned insight, and her decades of experience to help mentor younger women in order to help them lead better, more successful lives, not only for themselves, but for their families. And you see the desperation of women who are celebrities and a lot of influencers now, a lot of women online in general. There is a desperation to try to compare themselves to women who are in their 20s. And this is so sad because what we are lacking here is a significant amount of mentorship between elderly women. I would say like mature women. That's a sort of politically correct way to say it, but older women and younger women. Why would you want to waste your time in your 60s trying to convince people that you're just as beautiful as a woman who is 25? Because traditionally, women who are a little bit older, do you know what role they played in their community? They played an incredibly important role of mentoring younger women, of helping them become successful wives, successful mothers, so that they could help improve the next generations. If you think about the classic matriarch of the family, I think about my grandmother both of my grandmothers, but my grandmother on my dad's side, she passed away when I was 18 from lung cancer. And she was the sort of like traditional Italian matriarch. She was strong. She raised 5 kids. 4 of them were boys. And she was always beautiful. She always had her nails done. She always looked pretty as long as I could remember. Even when she was sick in her last days, my grandmother would always make herself look presentable. But she was really tough. She was tough in a way that the traditional matriarch always was. Like, people would fear her. Like, her sons would be scared of her. They would not even try anything on her. They wouldn't try to pull anything past her. They wouldn't try to overpower her because she had so much strength at home. But if you think about the traditional matriarch, she's not wasting her time trying to convince people in her 60s and 70s that she's hot. She's using her time wisely to pass down the kind of advice to younger women and men too, but especially woman to woman. She's using her precious time in her latter years, her latter decades, to pass down the kind of advice to women that cannot be found in textbooks. It can't be found online. It can't be found anywhere except from the women in your life that you trust, who have had decades of experience, much more experience than you've had when you're in your 20s. This is what older women traditionally used to be to younger women. This is a really important role. This is not some trivial thing that women used to do in their communities and their villages and their families. If you think about the traditional matriarch, she used to be able to provide the kind of advice that would change the course of someone's life. I think unfortunately, we may be losing a lot of this now because I think we're seeing fewer and fewer people, especially in Gen Z, maybe even millennials, fewer people who are deeply connected to their grandparents. But if you hear a lot of people talk about their grandparents before they passed away, or even if they're still alive in their elderly years, they're always telling inspirational stories. They're always giving advice that's very powerful. They're not wasting their time trying to convince people that they're hot. It's so unproductive. And I think one of the biggest reasons we are seeing so many women failing at life today in general, whether it's failing at dating or marriage or motherhood, is because we're severely lacking mentorship. This is true for men too, but I don't really speak for men. I let the men speak for the men. For women, we need more mentorship. We need more women who are in their 20s and even 30s looking up to older women who are more experienced than them, who are successful in terms of family and marriage. And sure, if you want to look for someone who's also successful professionally, career-wise, but we should especially be looking towards women who are successful in their marriage and in motherhood, who are older than us, because they have so much wisdom to impart on us. And because so many young women are lacking a sense of mentorship in their life, and a big part of that is because we're lacking Christian church life. The decline of organized religion, the decline of Christianity has played a huge role in the destruction and the breakdown of community, and the community of family too, but of community as well. So we're seeing a lot fewer women who have these female role models who are a little bit older. And then at the same time, you're separating the nuclear family. You guys know how I feel about the nuclear family. It's such a scam. It's just a marketing tool to boost consumerism. So you're separating this nuclear family unit away from the rest of the family, away from the intergenerational family. So you have a lot of young wives and mothers who have no connection to their mothers or their grandmothers or their aunts or any older women in their family who can impart wisdom and help them and guide them. And then where are all the women turning? They're turning to social media. They're turning to celebrities and influencers to find some sort of mentorship, because that's a very natural human instinct to find guidance and to find inspiration from other human beings. And a lot of times we find that in storytelling, which comes from the older generations or from older people that we look up to. And now instead, women are getting this kind of crap. Sharon Stone, I'm just as hot as I was before. I got just as many guys who want to sleep with me. Okay, great. Thanks for that information. I mean, the sad thing is I think she's a mom. Sharon Stone has 3 kids. She's been married twice. She has 3 kids. You would think that if she were going to get on a podcast to talk about something important, some kind of wisdom to impart to young women, she would talk about, I don't know, maybe her success in motherhood. But it's just, this is so sad. It just really indicates the breakdown of any sort of mentorship between younger and older women that used to serve a very important purpose, and now it's totally lost. So my advice to young women, I mean, I'm young, but I'm just saying this because it's been very useful for me, is it's really important to find older women in your life, whether it's a mother or grandmother, or even just some older, more experienced women that you find in church or in your community. It's important to establish these relationships, observe what these women have done with their life and their families. Ask them questions, create friendships, create relationships where you can have some sort of guidance and mentorship. Even someone who may be able to help out. You know, if a woman has multiple children and if they're much older, and if you're struggling as a young mom with young kids, that mom has a lot of wisdom and advice, but can also offer some hands-on help. And this is what's lacking so much in women's lives. And this is why women are turning to social media and consumerism and stupid movements like feminism and body positivity to feel better about themselves, because they have no guidance in their life. So if you're older and you're listening, reach out to some younger women who you think can benefit from your experience. And if you're younger, find some friends who are a little bit older and more experienced who you think you can learn from. Let's go to the second video. Well, we've got 2 videos along the same topic. So there's this new trend of we're DINKs on social media. So DINKs, D-I-N-K, it stands for dual income, no kids. It's a term that's used to describe a demographic in the United States. Usually they're fairly young, 30s, maybe even like 20s or 30s. These sometimes even 40s too. You have these couples that both work, they're both in the workforce, and they don't have any kids. So they supposedly have a lot of disposable income. And there's this new trend now on TikTok where these couples will walk down the street and they'll film themselves saying things about how awesome it is to be DINKs. So here is a video. Let's watch the first one here. It looks like, I don't know, this couple maybe in their early 30s, maybe late 20s. Here we go. Let's watch it.
We're DINKs. We go to Trader Joe's and workout classes on the weekends.
We're DINKs. We get into snobby hobbies like skiing and golfing.
We're DINKs. We can go to Florida on a whim.
We're DINKs. We're already planning our European vacation next year.
DINKs. We get a full 8 hours of sleep and sometimes more.
We're DINKs. We get desserts and appetizers at restaurants.
We're DINKs. We can play with other kids and give them back.
We're DINKs. We still do it 3 times a week.
We're DINKs. We spend our discretionary income on $8 lattes.
We're DINKs. We max out our 401ks, Roth IRAs, and HSAs.
We're DINKs. We don't use our kids or dog as an excuse to leave a party. We just leave.
Wow, how exciting. We're DINKs. We're DINKs. We're DINKs. Let's watch the second one, and then we'll sort of break this down and talk about this new trend.
We're DINKs. We're going to get asked daily when we plan on having kids. We're dinks. Of course we're going to go out to eat every night after work.
We're dinks. We don't have to ask our family for financial help or to watch our kid when we want to go out.
We're dinks. We're going to go to Costco and buy all the snacks in bulk that we want.
We're dinks. We have disposable income to spend on whatever we would like and don't have to spend on a kid.
We're dinks. I'm going to go to every football game and play 18 holes whenever I want.
We're dinks. We're going to get asked to every single family event what we're doing with our life.
We're dinks. We're dinks. We're dinks. What do you notice about these two videos? What are they talking about? What are all the things that they're referring to that's so exciting they get to do because they don't have kids? If you listen to it, even if you go back and rewind it if you need to, but if you really listen to it, 95% of the things that they're saying is just a way for them to race to the top of consumerism. We're dinks. We're going to eat out every night. We're dinks. We're going to go on a trip and spend more money. We're dinks. We're going to go to football games. We're dinks. We're going to buy appetizers at the restaurant. We're dinks. We're going to buy more snacks. It's just all about being meaningless, mindless consumers. Wow, how exciting. And here's my thing. It actually rubs me the wrong way when I see a lot of people on the right who imply or flat out outwardly claim that life is not worth living unless you have kids. I don't think that. As a Christian, I believe that our first priority in life is not to have children. It's not. Our first priority in life is to follow Christ, to serve God. Yes, most of the time, in a lot of cases, we are called to marriage, and marriage is a calling to have children. Yeah, of course, there are going to be outliers and certain couples that unfortunately are struggling with infertility. And so that might not be in God's plan for them. But that's different than couples that just choose not to have children even though they're fertile. So I don't think that every single person on the planet should immediately be called to have children. No, I think that our first priority in life as individuals is to serve God. And in most cases, like I said, that's going to result in marriage and parenthood. But it's not the case for everybody. I also think that instead of pushing and encouraging people to get married as soon as possible and start popping out babies as soon as possible, I think it's much more important to teach young people how to wisely choose a husband or a wife so that they have very, very little risk, very low risk of divorce, and they have a very high likelihood of being married for life and having multiple children successfully. And I think it's much more important to worry about who you marry and to think very carefully and consciously about who you choose rather than rushing into getting married young so you can pop out many babies and start having babies when you're 20, 25. It's a good thing if you find your person, if you find your husband or your wife that is on the same page as you and you want to get married in your 20s and that you feel God is calling you to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. Excellent. Great. But I don't think that we should be pushing people to get married just because they're young and they should. I think it's much more important to think very carefully about who you marry. So I'm not someone who looks at couples without kids and be like, well, your life has no meaning. I don't know if your life has no meaning a lot. Like right off the bat, and if I just see a couple with no kids, I'm not going to say that your life has no meaning. I don't know what God is doing in your life. I actually know couples who were not physically able to have children, and they serve in their community, and they are upstanding citizens, and they give to the world in different ways, and their life has plenty of meaning. However, this DINK trend, again, like I said, is nothing more than a race to the top of consumerism. Oh, wow, you're going to spend extra money on desserts at the restaurant? Oh my gosh, you're going to go golf 18 holes whenever you want? Wow, that's so cool. How exciting, how novel. I've never heard of that before. What an interesting way to live your life. If you're not going to have kids, at least do something interesting. Like at least, that sounds boring to me. Whatever you're bragging about sounds boring to me. That stuff, going to Costco, like that dude, the second video I showed you, like trust me, he's got plenty of snacks in his belly. He's this overweight slob and he's excited about just going to eat snacks every single weekend at Costco. Like, dude, that's gonna get boring really soon. Apparently this couple went online later and they're like, it doesn't mean we never want to have kids. Okay, great. If you want to have kids one day, then why are you making these dumb videos about bragging about how much you're enjoying just being consumers? Consumerism, yay, it's so fun. We're dinks. We're going to just be consumers. There's so many more interesting things you can do with your life. Not even interesting. There's so many more worthwhile, rewarding, fulfilling, productive things you can do with your life. Whether you're in the phase of life where you're not ready to have kids yet, or whether you, for some reason, just aren't choosing to have kids. There are so many better things you can do with your life. So that's the issue that I take with this trend. My issue is not that this couple is young and they're not having kids yet. If they're like, apparently they're very young, the second couple I showed, maybe they're early 20s, mid 20s, maybe they're just not ready to have kids yet. Okay. That's not my issue. My issue is that we have now come to a place in our culture where people are convinced that this kind of lifestyle is fulfilling and fun and good for society. My problem, in a nutshell, you can even put it broader than that. My problem is that Western American society has successfully convinced people that the only thing you should be living life for is yourself. And I think that's what's wrong, really at the heart of these videos. And I think what rubs a lot of people the wrong way is that you listen to what these people are saying and they're only living life for themselves and for their short-term dopamine hits. That's it. And that's a very sterile way to live life. It's also a waste. In ways, it's immoral to waste your talents and to waste the gifts that God gives you in order to just eat snacks and go golfing all the time. And I think that is what is so disturbing about these videos. It's not that they don't have kids yet. It's the fact that they are bragging about how sterile and unfulfilling their lives are. That's what's disturbing. But that's the trend with this generation. Gen Z has become more consumerist than any generation before us. Millennials are too, but Gen Z is even worse, I think. Maybe I'm saying that because I'm biased as a millennial, but I really think that Gen Z is worse. This is the kind of life that they think is fulfilling. Now, if you look at traditionally, you know how earlier I talked about the role traditionally of older women. Let's talk about the role traditionally of couples who didn't have kids. Of course, in the past, traditionally, the couples didn't have kids because they weren't able to. For some reason, they were infertile. Those couples still traditionally contributed very much to their community. They were contributing with childcare. They were contributing through innovation, through art, through service, volunteering. You've seen a lot of, there are even a lot of some of like the most amazing artists in the past. They were celibate or they were probably closeted gay, but they devoted their life to something that was much more fulfilling and that would give something to society in a way that was rewarding. They weren't just sitting back and not having kids so that they could do whatever they want. That's what I don't like about these trends. And someone asked online, they were like, why do you care if people have kids or not? Like, just let people not have kids. We don't need these people in our gene pool. Here's my answer to that. Having children is a good thing for society, not only for you and yourself and your own fulfillment, but it's good for society. This is something that humans have always believed for all of human history until like yesterday, until modern Western culture convinced you that having kids is a selfish thing that's going to ruin the climate. We have always believed, all of our ancestors have always believed that bringing life into the world is one of our duties and it is always a gift and it is good for society. It is good to procreate. I mean, goodness gracious, not too many generations ago, people were desperate to procreate. People really wanted to further their bloodline. It was something that they went to fight for, the right to preserve their bloodline, to keep procreating. And now people will do anything to not procreate. It's good for society for people to have children. I don't think that every single person on the planet is called to have children, but I think that more people should be having kids than they are having now. And even in terms of economically, let's talk about the state of the American economy. It is not good economically for us to not have more kids. It's not good to be below birth replacement rate. Do you know what that's going to do for our retirement age one day? Even for jobs and rates of unemployment one day. Like, we have to think about the state of our society. And this is the problem with the younger generations, is that we never think about the future and we never think about the state of our culture and our society. All we can think about is what we want right now today. That's all we can consider. And that's a sickness. It's like a cancer to constantly be obsessed with yourself. It is a good thing to have more children. And don't just miss me with all this, well, a lot of kids are born into an abusive home. Yeah, of course they are. And that's sad. And we should rectify that. And we should punish adults who abuse children. But just because there are bad parents out there does not mean that we should not be bringing any more children into the world. It's like saying that, there are some bad dads out there. Kids don't need a dad because there are bad dads out there. No, that's so stupid. We should always be asking ourselves, what can we do for our family? What can we do for our community and our society that's going to move the world forward? But we have become so self-obsessed that we have gone the complete opposite, where we're now asking ourselves, what can I do for myself, not for society, because I don't want to do anything for society, for the state of our culture and the state of our country. It's a sickness. So I do think that more people should be having kids. I'm not saying that you need to get married and have kids right away. Again, I think that it's more important to choose the right person so that you have a very low risk of divorce, so that you can successfully have kids and raise them the right way. But this whole thing of being married, and I don't know if that first couple is married, but let's just say that they are. This whole thing of being married and bragging about not having kids so that you can be consumers it should make you feel a little bit sick inside, because it's sick. It's kind of a disgusting way to approach life. Now, nobody's saying that, of course, life changes when you have kids. Of course, that's a fact that everybody knows once you're a parent. And yeah, you do have less free time to do the things that you really enjoy, especially in the first few years of their lives. And if you have multiple kids, you're going to have to factor in if the first few years of all of their lives. So if you have 3 kids in a row, that's quite a few number of years where you're not able to do everything that you want to do all the time. But that's part of the sacrifice that comes with having kids. And I think that's another thing that the younger generations are allergic to, is sacrifice and temporary suffering. They're allergic to that. They think that all sacrifice and all suffering is just inherently bad. And their entire existence is meant to try to avoid discomfort, to try to avoid responsibility, to try to avoid that suffering and the sacrifice. And that's a completely wrong way to approach life. In the Orthodox Church, they say that suffering is the very thing that brings us closer to Christ. It's our suffering that allows us to participate in the suffering of Christ. And so we should be grateful for our suffering. And our suffering is the time that we can use to turn to Christ and become closer to Christ. And that's something in my personal life that I have learned very much over the last year, especially. And it's something that really can't be described. You can't explain it. It doesn't sound like it makes much sense in the beginning. But the suffering and the sacrifice that we experience many times as parents is the very thing that brings us closer to God. And I've said this before online many times. People sometimes think I'm crazy when I say this, but I really think in most cases, becoming a parent makes you a better person. I really believe that. And I think that if more of these young career-focused people, whether you're millennials or Gen Z, I think if they prioritized parenthood and if they became parents, they would be better people. They would be better actors in society. Because first of all, when you have children, you realize that you have a bloodline that's going to live after you die, and you want to create a world that is better for them. You want to create a more moral society. You want to create a better economy. You want to be an upstanding citizen because you are leaving this world to your children and your children's children. And single people who don't have kids and who don't want kids will never understand this until they hold their child for the first time. But that's why becoming parents often makes you a better person. Even that in and of itself is that you are leaving the world to your children and you want to leave them a better place. You don't want to leave them a crappy world. Of course not. And then even further than that, becoming a parent makes you selfless. It makes you more productive. It makes you more organized. It makes you give up a lot of the bad habits that you had before. Okay, yes, I know there are outliers. There are plenty of women and men out there who become parents and they don't become better people, and they may be neglectful parents, or they may be abusive parents, and that's very sad, but you can't use the outliers to disprove the rule. I think in most cases, becoming a parent makes you a better person. It makes you more thoughtful, it makes you more patient, it makes you more compassionate, it makes you more kind, it makes you more loving, because you don't know the kind of love of becoming a parent until you hold your child. There is no love like it in the world. To know that you would lay down your life for your child, and that is a good thing. And so I do think that more people should have kids. And again, it would make people better human beings. It would make them more concerned about our future, and it would make them more likely to be self-sacrificial, which is what we need more of in society. Okay, the last video that we're going to watch today. Have you guys heard of the Tater Tot lady? If you've been on Twitter at all in the last 2 weeks, you probably heard of the Tater Tot lady, because she sparked this really big conversation about trad wives and mothers and whatever. So I'm going to show you this. This is kind of it's a longer video. I'm not going to show the whole thing, but let's just watch this mom. She is a pretty popular influencer on TikTok, I discovered. Her handle is applesauce and ADHD, which, I mean, whatever. I'll just let you watch the video first, and then we shall discuss, because this woman ignited a big debate on Twitter. So here we go.
Tonight we are having taco tater tot casserole. This is it. In a massive skillet, you are going to place a pound of ground beef. Mine is in a bag. Brown up your beef. Chop it up aggressively. My ground beef is quite lean, so I am not draining it. I don't know. I must have bought very lean meat this time. But I will add a metric ton of garlic. 2 metric tons. And to those of you who look at this and say, that's so much garlic, yes and no. Minced garlic in the jar is much, much milder. Add in some onion powder, and don't be like me. Don't ever season over a hot pan. It will cause you to get some condensation inside of your jar from the moisture, and it will give your spices a clumping effect. Be better than me. Into our ground beef, you're going to add the equivalent of 1 packet of taco seasoning. I eyeball this. Looks good. A cup of salsa. Half of a small jar. I am going to add a half a cup of water. That's for your taco seasoning. Add in 1 can of black beans. Drained and rinsed. I have decided it needs the rest of the jar of salsa. I'm going to add in a bag of corn. It's frozen. It's fine. To this, I am going to add a good handful of cheese, probably a cup. That much. I am now going to top this mixture with a bag of tater tots. Frozen. It's important that they're arranged into a design.
Okay,
Don't
so
just
she goes
dump them
on. She piles a bunch of frozen tater tots on top.
Cheese to the top. It's been about 20 minutes. Top my casserole with some cheese. Why?
Okay.
Because I live in the Midwest.
So that's what.
Is it even good?
This is the Tater Tot lady. I don't know why. I mean, I kind of get why. This video went super viral on Twitter. Someone shared it from TikTok. They posted it from TikTok, and it has gone super viral. Everyone's talking about this woman. Someone shared this and said, okay, A, she's my new favorite person, and B, this is what IRL in real life trad wives are, but nobody is ready for that convo. Sorry, bro. She's probably not some ethereal size 0 walking through a field of sunflowers. This tweet got 14 million views, 68,000 likes. Here are some of the comments about this woman. She's perfect. I would die for her. Literally love her. I wish she was my mom. I'd probably be more well-adjusted. This looks bomb and she is awesome. Wish she was my mom friend. I like her perpetually annoyed gaze. And then they're like showing screenshots of her face, like her face of disdain. Someone's like, I like it when she yells at me. This is my vibe. Literally true. All the trad wives I know are wholesome, chubby women with several kids and a semi-feral husband. It's just how it be. It's like Martha Stewart and Roseanne Barr had a love child. Aries woman energy. Okay, so people in this comment section love this woman. They love her. I'm not trying to be unkind, but let me just tell you my initial reaction to this video. I've known many women with this sort of personality. I grew up in the deep South. I grew up in South Georgia, very small town. She's from the Midwest, but I think there's definitely a lot of crossover in terms of like mom personality and even in terms of diet. This personality is extremely annoying to me. I've just never understood why people like this sort of irritated, annoyed, sarcastic, angry sort of personality. Like I would never want a mother to have this sort of personality. I want my mother to have that sort of personality. I'm not saying that a mom should be perfect and sweet all the time, but this is like, she's annoyed. And look, this is not a one-off. Her entire profile is this is like her personality. This is her shtick. She's loud. She's irritated all the time. She's like annoyed that you're watching the video. And she's feeding her family garbage. Sorry. Frozen tater tots. On top of that, I mean, ground beef is good. Yeah, feed your family ground beef, sure. But that's not a good meal. Sorry. And she's also obese. And now you have a lot of people who are like, she is the ultimate trad wife. And I'm thinking to myself, is the bar so low? Is the bar so low that we've set the bar so low where an unjoyful, annoyed, irritated, obese woman who is feeding her family trash, fried seed oil trash, is now considered to be the sort of quintessential trad wife. This is why I hate the term trad wife. I hate it. It is so stupid and useless, and it means nothing. The term trad has just become, I've done plenty of episodes on this. You can go listen to all my past content about trad. The whole idea of trad has just become this stupid new trend. It's a new LARP. It's a new Instagram aesthetic that means something different to everybody. It means nothing. You know why? Because what is trad short for? Tradition. Great. To what tradition are we referring? Because, like, for example, what this person said, this is what IRL trad wives are, and nobody's ready for that convo. So what she probably means by trad wife is a woman who is married and stays home and cooks for her kids. Okay, that covers like a lot of different types of wives and moms. And is this what we want to aspire to? Is this trad now? I'm not trying to be mean or unkind, but that is not the sort of trad wife that I want my daughter to look up to, that I even want to look up to. You don't have to be an ethereal size 0 walking through a field of sunflowers. No, these are two extremes. Why are we only looking to two extremes of what a wife, quote, trad wife is? Both of these extremes are not good to look up to. And I'm kind of shocked at a lot of these people who are like, she's so perfect. Tater Tot wife, I love her. She's so perfect. She looks mean. And she's feeding her family garbage. Like, Americans are so, they're just so starved of what it means to be healthy and feed your family good food. Like, I don't know how many kids she has, but look, I'll say this. I know plenty of moms who have like probably more kids than she has, 6 kids even, and they don't feed their family this kind of garbage on the regular basis. And again, this is not a one-off. This is not like, oh, let's have a fun night of tater tots. Like, this is the kind of food that she cooks for her family all the time. I looked on her page. I want to read this. So there's this Twitter account called Scorched Earth Policy. I recently discovered, I'm assuming it's a guy. I recently discovered this guy, and a couple of his takes have been really accurate. He's a great writer. And I want to read to you what he wrote about this woman, because it's so accurate and it's harsh. But as I was reading this, I was like, yes. This is what I really like about what he's saying. But first of all, I'll also say this. One of the reasons I really don't like her attitude is because as moms, as people in general, but I'll just say as moms, we're called to be grateful and joyful. And that doesn't mean that you have to be smiling and perfect all the time and you have to like fake it like some sort of Stepford housewife. No, but especially from a Christian perspective, we are called to be joyful. God wants us to be grateful for the blessings that we have in our life. And God wants us to be, to live in joy. That's what we're called to do. He doesn't want us to have a sarcastic, annoyed countenance all the time. And as a mom, we shouldn't be showing that sort of attitude to our children all the time. It's okay to be frustrated and really tired. And it's okay to feel like you're having a bad day and you just don't want to do it anymore. It's okay. Those are the moments that we turn to God and we ask for help. We ask for peace. We ask for wisdom. We ask for strength. But I don't like seeing women with this kind of perpetually annoyed attitude because I don't think it's a good example to leave for kids. I'm sorry. And if people are like, you're looking way too much into this. This is like a TikTok thing. I'm like, no, I'm not looking way into it because this is what a lot of moms are like. And then you got all these like conservatives who are like, yeah, she's like the perfect trad wife. I'm like, what? Do we really want moms to act like that? I'm sorry, but health matters. Health matters. We should not want our children to look up to an obese person who is feeding their family trash time and time again. That should be the opposite of what we're looking up to. No one's saying that we need to be cruel to her or condemn her or call her names. We don't need to do any of that. We don't have to be mean to her, but we do need to promote something better to our kids and to our society. So now let me read you what Scorched Earth Policy wrote. I'm going to condense it because it's a long tweet. So he starts out by saying, every single day I promise myself I'll stop being a rant guy and try to make at least one post that isn't pointing at whatever grotesque filth of the day someone dragged out of the sewers and filmed for the world's amusement. This guy's funny to me. Okay, so he's like, I wish I could be better, but I'm not. It's not in my nature. He said, it's not even the heaviness of her pork rind jowls enslaving her facial expression to near constant despondence at the hands of gravity that makes me disgusted with her. The obesity is the obvious play here. It's the yelling that gets me. That loud mouth, cow, belching, permanent 90 plus decibel bellowing she does 24/7 is her worst sin. I hate when disgusting, trashy pores get loud. There's something wholly unnecessary about it. Out of every possible impulsive habit they could indulge in, loudness is truly the most pointless one. Alcohol, drugs, junk food, laziness, all of that has some kind of pleasure associated with it. Almost all of their vices can be at least logically justified by some incentive, but not loudness. Loudness has absolutely no reason to exist. It is completely a product of pure nature-induced misery. This woman screams every day in front of her kids because her mother screamed every day growing up around her. These people would have panic attacks and start suffocating to death if you force them to sit in silence for 5 minutes. Their existence is invigorated by cacophony. Invariably, it's always the dullest, brain-dead morons who are the loudest as well. They project their voices with the slightest hint of a tone to suggest that the fact that they're screaming is in and of itself an act of implicit comedy. Okay, this is why I really agree with him here. Trad wives aren't real, and neither is being trad in the sense that people think it is. It isn't tradition of any kind. It's a simulacra. I don't know this word. I'm so sorry. I feel stupid. I don't know this word. It's a simulacra of one developed by some strange blend between 1950s idyllic aesthetics, an already bullshit product of marketing, and 19th century agrarian tropes. I'm really wondering if the post I'm quote tweeting is an intelligent satire and acknowledge of that dynamic or a sincere love for this howling beast. I could not have articulated this better myself. What's his name again? Scorched Earth Policy. His handle is SCEARPO. Listen, let's read this line again. Trad wives aren't real, and neither is being trad in the sense that people think it is. It isn't tradition of any kind. It's a simulacra of, I'm sorry, I don't know that word, guys, of one developed by some strange blend between 1950s idyllic aesthetics, an already bullshit product of marketing, and 19th century agrarian tropes. How often do I say a variation of this? The idea of a trad wife is nothing more than a reduction of what we saw in that small sliver of history in the 1950s, which was an anomaly that was pushed by marketing. It was a marketing ploy. That's what the whole nuclear family trad wife thing is. It was brought to you by corporations so that you could move to a white picket fence home, purchase a house that looks just like every other house on the block, buy a washing machine, buy a dishwasher and a new iron and an ironing board, and invite people over for dinner and have your own isolated little family. That's what the trad wife thing is. Everybody likes to say is traditional. Trad wives aren't real. There's no such thing as trad, because what tradition are you referring to? So I really like what he says here. But even going back to what he said about loudness, I actually like what he said about that too. She is loud and she seems both offended and a little bit offensive. I think that we can do better than this, ladies. I think we can find other moms who are better role models. If you want to keep using the term trad wife, I think we can find more women who are better role models for the mother and trad wife than this person. I'm not saying she's a bad mom. I don't know anything about her. This is not a way to bash her. I'm just saying that we need to do a little bit better. I think our society is so starved for good moms and wives that they see this stuff on social media. Has fried people's brains. That's a better way to put it. Social media has totally broken people's brains, that they see this video and they're like, this is so awesome. She's my new favorite person. I love her. She is the real trad wife. Oh man. Guys, I'm not saying that you should like judge people for being obese and that we should treat them poorly and be mean to them, but we really need to get real about the obesity crisis in this country. And we have to stop pretending like obesity doesn't mean anything, especially in mothers, especially when it's accompanied with feeding your family trash. If this were an obese mom who was trying to get healthier and was feeding her family healthy meals every day so that the whole family could feel better and lose weight and be healthier, that's a different story. But the whole thing of a very overweight, obese mom feeding the family trash and calling it ideal is not. No, I'm not supportive of that. Sorry. Call me mean. I don't care. I really don't want to see the obesity crisis get promoted anymore in any way, shape, or form, even if that means propping up very obese content creators, because it's not a good thing. It's not good for our society. That's it. That was a lot today. We covered a lot today. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. We've got some guests coming up soon, finally. We are sort of like relaunching my show. I think we're going to try to redo the studio to make it look a little bit different. We've got some guests coming in. Hopefully we'll be able to get more and more guests. We're gonna have to do some guests virtually because we're in the Middle Tennessee area and not many people live here or really travel here much. But we will get some guests in person, and we'll definitely get some more coming up virtually. So if there's anybody that you want to see on the show, put it in the comments section, send me a message or whatever, and we can do our best to get them on the show. Yeah, it's December now. I think I'm almost 5 months pregnant now. Yeah, it's fun, I tell you what. But it's kind of nice being pregnant during the winter because you could just like put on all the layers. But I'm starting to look pregnant now, which is fun. So I'll keep you guys updated on all of that. I hope you guys have a really good rest of the day. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time. Bye-bye.